Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 198.3, the Foncast. I
Ooh.
am I am
Excuse
here.
me, Mr. Henry.
Hold your horses. We haven't taken over operations of 911 just yet,
Uh,
but we are back with episode 90. Can you believe that? 90 of our show. And it feels like it's been forever, and sometimes it feels like it's just yesterday that we started. And who's drinking coffee at 9 p.m. on a Sunday to get through this thing? It's me, your host with the most, Justin.
oh,
And
I'm bleeding here.
now, if you're one of our savvy listeners, you're probably in the know about why I'm sounding like this right now. But if you like to live dangerously, if you just
Ooh.
clicked on an episode at random and you're wondering what is up with my voice, well, that'll become clear in just a second. But I'm here tonight with my co-host Cody. And before we get to the topic du jour, let's find out about some of the stuff we've been doing. So, Cody, what's been new in your world?
Well, I tell you, ooh, what have I been up to? I've literally just been doing stuff for my Halloween party, which is coming up. It'll be in 5 days from the time this episode drops, so pretty excited about that. This will be the last one we record before that. And besides that, just a couple tiny things. I went to a football game at my school. My two schools I work at played each other, so that was kind of interesting. And then the other thing here I want to do is give a shout out, a couple shout outs here quick. One to a play we went to last night, which was performed at my school in the Performing Arts Center, and it was Clue, which it said it was the high school edition, and I saw Clue in Chicago like a year or two ago for the first time on stage, which I was excited about. And it definitely was, there were some different things in this one than there were in the one that we saw. Both of them were the play version, I should emphasize, not the musical, which does exist and I've never seen in person. I would like to see that sometimes, a bucket list item of mine. But it was really well done. The people that played the principal roles of the main six and the butler and even Yvette did a really nice job because it's based on the movie theatrical version. So, and it had a slightly different ending actually than I was expecting as well. So it was really well done. Beyond that, just want to give a quick shout out to a couple TV shows we've been watching as well. One by myself, I've been watching off and on very infrequently, but I've been enjoying it, is the Cabinet of Curiosities, which I mentioned today in one of our chats. It's Guillermo del Toro's anthology series on Netflix. I believe there's only 6 episodes. They're not related in any way, shape, or form. It's more or less like a campfire story. You know, you'd sit around and tell one. And the one I watched today was about a lady who became obsessed with a skin cream, and I'm not going to say much more than that, but it went some places I was not prepared for it to go. And I was eating lunch as I was watching it, and at one point I almost lost said lunch. It was quite
Oh, damn.
interesting. So yeah, and then just before we got on here, the family and I caught back up on episode 3 of Loki as well, which has been kind of interesting so far. They're doing a little bit of time traveling at the moment here. They're just back in the 1890s, so we'll see where that ends up with only 3 more episodes to go on that. So, how about you, Justin? What have you been up to?
And I'm going to drop the voice because otherwise I'm
Justin Nash coming at you here right now. What do you got, Justin? Take us.
so it's been a packed weekend for me, but not in the way that I expected. I heading into this, I thought I was going to be running my Pathfinder game, and then today I thought I was going to be playing a different game that another friend is running. Both of those fell through for entirely different reasons. Someone got sick for the game I'm not running, and someone's car broke down for the game I am running. So
D1.
it's yeah. So yeah, that fell through, but ended up today, at least, helping process grapes that my father-in-law, he's got this, his entire terrace is like full of grapes. And we processed like, well, I mean, the end part of it, we did I think it was like 78 pounds were this year. So we kind of crushed them all down and got them into the various containers that they're going to ferment further into. And For a while, it looked like, I had murdered someone, which again is kind of fitting for what we're talking about today, because, red grapes, it looks like blood. But it was a fun time, and I'm sure we'll walk away with a bottle or two of the finished product at the end, and that's always fun. Um, Other than that, I after finishing the thing we're talking about today, I started playing Alan Wake, the original,
Oh, wow.
yeah, because the sequel's coming out in the near future, as of well, like when we're talking about this anyway, it might be out by the time this episode drops. But yeah, and I never had played it before. It was on sale for like $5 at some point during like a Steam sale, and it's interesting so far. It's like the developers saw In the Mouth of Madness and decided, well, what if we made instead of the author being like the bad guy, what if we made him kind of the protagonist, the unwilling protagonist? And yeah, well, we'll see where this goes. It's different than a lot of horror games I've played so far. But yeah, I'm not terribly far into it yet, but I'm liking what I've seen. So that's kind of about it from what I can think of, at least. So that does bring us to the topic of the day. And no, it's not Landfear. We talked
Lanfear.
about that last time or the time
Lanfear.
before. But no, it's a little indie horror game called Killer Frequency, which dropped, I believe, last year, I think is when it came out. But developed by or published by Team 17, developed by was it 11-bit Studios, was it?
I don't think I ever saw who the other one was. I just saw the developer.
Okay, let's take a quick look here. At any rate, it is an interesting concept. No, it did come out this year. Developed and published by Team 17.
Oh, both. Okay.
Where yeah, it's a small scale project, sort of in the same vein as say, some of the Five Nights at Freddy's games, where you're mostly confined to a single location, but they do a lot with the location. So it puts you in the role of a guy named Forrest Nash, who was a big name radio host who. Do we ever actually find out what happened in his career that kind of
Not that
put
I
him
can
in the shoes?
remember.
Yeah, but something he made some sort of mistake or something happened to him where he had gone from an audience of millions across the country to the best job he can find is hosting a late night talk show in this little backwoods podunk town called Gallows Creek with an audience of maybe 30. Um, so he's not exactly happy with his lot in life, but he's making the best of it. And one night, something goes very wrong. So there's this serial killer that had disappeared about 30 years ago, seems to be back. And the first target that they go after is the police station, the entire police station, aside from like one cop who, depending on your actions, may or may not escape to get help. Uh,
Oh,
and being that all the cops are gone and there's no one else in town to try and protect anyone, they divert all the 911 calls to you because you're on the air and someone's got to try and keep people alive. So it's a really interesting concept. And that's really what grabbed me first about this one. How did you first find out about this game, Cody?
yeah. I'm trying to think. I think I just saw a trailer, like this game was being released or was coming out soon or something, and the trailer was just intriguing to me because you kind of have like this. I mean, well, you don't even see like hands or anything, do you? You're just kind of like
I don't think so.
you're just invisible. You're just there, like it's first person totally, but almost like I don't know how to describe it, like old school Punch Out almost, except you don't have the wireframe, but like you kind of got the view of like, the world's just following you as you look at stuff. And in the trailer looked interesting because there was, a little bit of radio station in there. There was a little bit of this serial killer type person walking here and there. And then there was also like the beginnings of, you didn't really understand it until you played the game, but like the beginnings of what you would be doing as far as the interface in the game, and making decisions and trying to solve puzzles. And I think they might even like kind of hype that up in the trailer, if I recall correctly, that there's like puzzles to solve and things like that. And if you are a longtime listener of the show, most of our hosts are big fans of puzzles of some sort. Maybe not always the same type of puzzle, but we do enjoy us a good puzzle here. And so there was a lot to get excited about for this one. And I just don't think I had ever seen a concept like it from the trailer. And having played the game, I will also say I probably haven't played a game too close to this either, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah, yeah. And Well, we can actually segue into the gameplay because it is you are a radio host who's suddenly been saddled with all this responsibility. And the people who are calling in might not even realize that, what has happened at the police station, that you're now the person they have to turn to while, while chaos is breaking out across the town. Uh, and the gameplay does boil down to you trying to walk them through situations to get them to safety before the killer, who's called the Whistling Man, tracks them down and kills them. And I do have to give a shout out to the voice actors in this game because they really helped bring the atmosphere to life. Because they could have easily gone wrong somehow, but these guys, they leaned into the campy 80s feel of it, to the point where you pick up a call and it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. The killer is after me. I dropped my keys and I'm just so golly gosh darn scared. I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this. Just sort of a they really ham it up, but at the same time it is tense because there's certain timed sections where you have to make decisions before
Yeah.
before the time runs out or before the killer comes around a corner or something like that. And despite never seeing any of these people, you feel, I don't necessarily want to say a connection, but you do feel that sense of urgency as you're flipping through pages of how to hotwire a car, or trying to figure out like the best route to go around a neighborhood or whatever. It's amazing what they do with the limited interface that they have available to them. Excuse me, to them.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I enjoyed the most about this game. Just I said beforehand, I made a little pro and con list for this one too, but definitely, maybe even the biggest thing about this game was just purely the fact that I don't know that I've played it in the game where 97%, I don't know if that's a spoiler, but maybe 97% of the action takes place off screen. Like you never see it. So, it's that whole power of imagination thing where like whatever I can conceive in my head is probably worse than they could animate based on the budget of this game and their cel-shaded-esque stylized indie developer budget that they had. So when these people call in and describe their situation and the voice acting was so good, you really got into it and you really started to kind of picture what was happening at this place. And you're like, oh my God, I got to help these people. And if you fucked up and didn't save someone and you could hear the stuff, you were like, oh my God, like, oh.
Yeah, and it dawns on me the closest thing I can think of to this whole setup was the 1980s. I think it was actually in 1980 that it came out, horror movie The Fog, which had kind of a similar setup. It was more supernatural in that there's this creeping fog that's covering the town and bad things are happening. But wasn't the protagonist and the central character in that also like a radio host?
Yeah, actually, I think she was.
Yeah,
She was like running the whatever it was, Anchor Bear, whatever. That's not it, but I mean, just like
yeah,
Gallows Creek, pick a
yeah,
descriptor, pick a location. That's basically how they come up with these names, right?
yeah.
Amity Bay, whatever. They're all.
Yeah. But so if you've seen that movie and you have a soft spot for it, or you even like the concepts just in general, then you kind of have an idea what you're in store for. And I mentioned that they do a lot with what they have available, and you're not always stuck in the actual recording studio. You do venture around to the other offices a little bit, and maybe to a few other places that I don't want to spoil. So if the idea of just being stuck in one spot and just having to listen to people talk at you sounds a little limiting, rest assured there's a bit more to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I wasn't positive
and
we were going to leave the room when I
same.
started the game, and then, kind of pleasantly surprised with what happens here. So,
Yeah, and there are some really devious twists and turns that happen along the way that I also don't want to spoil. But I will say, don't get complacent. Because if you start getting too full of yourself and sure that you're always doing the right thing, at some point it's probably going to come back and bite you. Um,
okay.
yeah, and you did mention that there are I think we both kind of mentioned that people can live or die based on your actions, and regardless of which way that goes for each caller, the story does continue. And I love that about this game.
Yeah.
The fact that there's no game over state because you didn't save Mrs. Garfunkel of 123 Stephen King Lane or whatever. But yeah, your decisions and your mistakes they stick with you and they linger as you keep going on. So if you actually do go into this with the mindset of I want to help everyone, I want to save everyone, the first time you screw up, it's gonna sit there like in the back of your mind, like, well, crap. If
Yep.
I'd only done this differently, or if I'd only, thought to look here or whatever, maybe they'd still be alive. And from what I gather, it does affect the ending, to some extent, at least.
To some extent, yeah. So I was just looking here. Hopefully this isn't too much of a spoiler, but it looks like there are a total of 22 people in the game that can either live or die. All things completed. Now, a couple of those are put into singular scenarios where multiple people could live or die, or some combination of the two could happen in
Okay.
there. But yeah, it was interesting just to see who was going to make it out and who wasn't going to make it out. And I would also be curious, hopefully at the end here we can do a little spoiler piece as well, because I'm curious if you know who made it or didn't make it in your game. I don't know if that's something you know offhand, but
I remember certain key characters that died,
okay.
certainly. But yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, we can.
so it's kind of interesting because I was trying to read a lot of reviews for this before we came on tonight, and some comments on Reddit and some other social media places, it was interesting that people would be like, "Oh, there's no way to save that character," or "That was such a dumb choice to save that character," and other people were like, kind of like, "No, this was the character that I had no clue how to save." So it's not
Uh,
necessarily as black and white as like these are the hard, these are the easy either. I don't think.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I will say one that I'm kicking myself about is one that I probably would have figured out if I'd realized if the game had done a better job of telling me that information was available on screen.
Ooh,
Um, without spoiling anything, I'll say there is one where you have to figure out like a route through certain parts of town where streets are torn up, and you hear a list of like people that might be able to be of assistance, and it gets rattled off really kind of quickly. And I'm looking at the map as this is happening, and I didn't realize that apparently, as I'd heard all these things, my character had written down all like Cliff's notes of all that stuff on post-its and stuck them to the side of the map. So I was trying to go based entirely on memory. And Peggy, your tech person from the who's taking all the calls and whatnot, she's like, "Hurry up, Forrest! We gotta pick someone." And I'm like, okay, this person." And I picked entirely wrong because I was trying to just run through my head of everything I had just heard when I could have looked like 2 feet to my left and seen that, oh, hey, there's a refresher.
yeah.
Um,
That one frustrated me, and I happened to see the notes eventually,
uh,
but like there was a long time where I was looking at the route going like, what did she say? I don't know what she said. And I will say there seemed to be at least a little inconsistency in the game as far as like what information is left on the screen for you and what sometimes it's not. Like you'll get a
yeah.
caller that says something, or Peggy will say something to you and it's left up there for you to like keep looking at. And then other times it's just gone and you're like, "Ugh."
Hmm. Yeah, so I took to trying to jot down notes on a piece of physical paper next to me
Oh,
just in case
wow.
I
Okay.
needed stuff. Yeah, which I haven't done since Signalis, really.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, and I did need that. Well, it kind of came back and bit me at one point because I stumbled across, again, not spoiling anything. I stumbled across a book with certain codes in it that I thought I would be useful. So I went ahead and jotted all those down. Later on, it's like, hey, there should be this book that you need to go find. And I'm like,
Mm,
do I need to actually go back and find that to trigger the next event? Or so I had to like go back through the area where it was, and
yeah.
it's kind of a maze. So it took me like 10 extra minutes to find out where the heck that thing was again.
Mm,
And yeah, and then when you end up using it, you don't even have to physically enter the code. It's just like you say which one you want to give, and it's like, God damn it, I just wasted all that time.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
um so in general, I would say the puzzles were solid, but there were a few instances like that where it felt like they were kind of rough around the edges. To me, anyway. I'm not sure if you felt the same way.
No, I mean I sympathize with them. Not only as I mean, perfect example is I'm sitting here with 5, 6 days left till the Halloween party, and I'm like just smacking myself at like trying to finish up the finishing pieces of these puzzles. And I'm like, you want stuff to be like the right difficulty, but not repetitive, but then not. And the puzzles in the game, certainly some were definitely harder than others.
Mm.
Not all puzzles were created equally in this game. but it's
Yeah.
also a matter of like, did they think that they were equal, and maybe as a player they just turned out to not be? I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough variety to the kinds of modes of thinking you need to address for the various puzzles. Maybe you were better at some of them than say like another person would be, and I'm better at others than somebody else would be. So it might just be how we approach, these sorts of things.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
yeah, but I think there is something here that will appeal to everyone puzzle-wise, and others that might have you really kind of pulling your hair out after a bit. But I mean, nothing too difficult. But there are a lot of like little trick pieces to some of them, which could lead you astray if you're not careful. Which
Yeah.
I do have to give them credit for because it's like, hey, I got the answer, and this like, no, I should have taken like another 2 minutes to look over at this thing, and now they're dead. So
Yeah. Uh, we do the little spoiler piece at the end. They'll tell you
mhm.
an unfortunate death I had and why I was angry that the character died, because I don't feel like it was my fault. But
Okay,
we'll
I,
we'll
I
get we'll get back to that at the end there.
sure. Um, so let's see. We've talked about gameplay a bit, about the puzzles. Presentation. You did mention it's sort of a almost cell shaded art style. Do you feel that worked? Or did you like how it was presented, or do you think it should have been done maybe a bit differently? Did it capture the atmosphere well for you?
I think it worked okay, as far as this is kind of set in the 80s. This is like the homage to the slasher genre, more or less. And
Mhm.
I don't know that like a hyper realized look for this would have gave that same feel as like 80s. Not to say cell
That's fair.
shade was big in the 80s, but I did think the art direction has kind of matched what they were going for with the overall vibe. And it was also kind of comical, and there's a lot of really weird transitions here, as far as like being serious, being extremely distraught over what had just happened, and then like also making jokes on top of it all. So,
Yep. Then fucking Ponty calls up and he's using a different voice. And
oh my God, I love that character.
yes, uh,
Oh,
you'll understand when you play it. It's he's something else.
he really is. Couple more points I had here that I really liked about this. One is actually liked the length of the game itself, which it didn't wear out its welcome. It was a diversion based on the plot in the actual physical setting of where you were. I thought it ran just about the right amount of time. I don't think they could have dragged this out to be double the length or anything, unless they would have really changed like what you're doing in the game, and then that would have also defeated the purpose of what style of game it was, I think.
Yeah, yeah. With that said, it is roughly about what would you say, a 5 hour game, give or take?
Yeah, I guess so. I read it was like 5 to 6. I didn't actually check how long I played it for. It felt like more than that, but I did it in 3 sessions at night, so it might have been hour and a half, 2 hours a night. It's very possible.
Okay,
How
based
about,
on
did you play this straight through, or?
no, I broke it up over several sessions, but according to like my Steam history, it took me about 5 hours.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're in the mood for just like a quick horror experience, and you don't want to invest as much time as in like a Resident Evil or something like that, this is definitely a good alternative. It's yeah, it is well, actually, it's quick, but it does have replay value, I would say, because as you mentioned, there's 22 characters that can either live or die depending on how good you are at your job.
Yes.
Um, and if you do say go through and try to save everyone the first time, and you find there's characters you hate, do another playthrough and see if you can just like lead them down the wrong path and have them get brutally murdered if that's your thing. Yeah, it's sort of a choose your own adventure horror puzzler, and I like you said, I don't think I've ever played anything quite like it.
Yeah, very different, very unique. Other pros I had on here, just we kind of already mentioned this as well, but I liked that you had decent choices in the puzzles, and then also, the characters living or dying would be the result of what you came up with. But
Mhm.
one thing we haven't mentioned yet, and I think we need to, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but when the game is over,
Mhm.
you get to experience the best soundtrack theme song since Loose Screws. That's what I'm talking about.
Hell yes.
That's a great song.
It is. I mean, a lot of the music in this game, because you are a DJ, you will periodically have to put on songs for the listeners in between stuff that's happening. Most of it's just instrumental. It'll be like synth heavy a lot of the time, but I
Yeah.
don't think there's any lyrics to any of the records you put on. But yeah, that ending theme was just, I mean, whoever did that deserves every cent they made. That was great.
Yep, totally agree. It was fantastic. Matter of fact, I listened to the song twice, which I'll get to towards the end of this as well here. But
Mm.
it was fantastic though. But Boston, my son happened to be in the room at the time, and the kids didn't watch me play the game, but he happened to be in the room for some reason for like the last half hour of the game, which I didn't know was going to be the last half hour of the game also.
Mm.
But then when it was over and that song came on, he was like, "This is a good song," and I was like, "Yes, it is. Oh my gosh, it's a great song."
You're raising that kid right.
Right? Let's see here. I'm trying to avoid spoilers with some of this other things here.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say I like how parts of the game did feel like a giant escape room. Because you were like digging through the trash to find like things that might be relevant to what you were looking for, or
hmm,
flipping things over and trying to figure out what like cryptic notes meant, that people left, to
yeah,
their coworkers and things. So yeah, I like the fact that it made you think outside the box sometimes. Um, just if we're focusing on non-spoilery things.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's see what else here. I don't think it's a spoiler, but I'm guessing you played this on your PC or did you play this on Switch?
Nope, PC.
Yeah, so I have to do a con that's a non-spoilery con here, which is the
Oh,
interface on the Switch was rough.
ooh,
So I got through this. Here's the thing. I think if
okay.
you had your Switch in handheld mode with a good pair of headphones, this would be
Mhm.
fantastic in the dark. But I played this on my TV in the docked mode and like trying to click on the buttons and the songs and everything, I had to like you move the
Oh,
oh it was hard. I
I
mean,
was
I got better at it as it went, but I would hope if you played it in the handheld mode, it'd be touchscreen.
that would make sense. And on that note, in playing this, I almost felt like this was designed, like it should have been designed as a VR game. Because having like hand interfaces it would be, you just reach out, you press the button, it would be simple. And
Yeah.
it turns out there is a VR version of this,
Oh well.
which I didn't know. If I'd known that, I might have looked to dust off my Quest headset and given that a go. But yeah, I would say there is a lot of precision movement you have to do at times, like to adjust volumes of things or click buttons. And I hadn't, sort of like with Chance of Sonar when we were talking about that. I wouldn't have even thought that the interface would have been an issue just because of the way I was interacting with the game. So that's interesting. And I guess some games are just they don't lend themselves well to like thumbsticks, which is odd. It seems
Well,
like the
yeah,
the
it's
yeah.
it's 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 interesting because I would bet the docked mode had to be far worse than the PC mode for sure.
Hmm.
But I'm curious if the handheld mode would have been even better than the PC mode. I don't know. Like
Maybe.
clicking the screen would have felt really natural.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe if I play it again, I'll try it the other way just to see.
On a tangentially related note with
Yeah.
like interactivity, did you like on the big old map that you have in your of the town that you have in your studio,
Hmm.
did you use really any of the push pins or the like post-it notes at all that are available on it?
No, not really. I did notice you can move them around, but I wasn't really sure what purpose they were for. I kept thinking they were going to serve a purpose later, and then the game was over.
Yeah. Yeah, I kept doing it like every time I got a call, it's like, okay, try to find where they're calling from on the map and okay, mark that because maybe it would be important. And I'm not going to say whether or not it was, but yeah, it felt like maybe there could have been a little more direction with those things.
Okay.
But yeah, I do like that they included them, so you could at least have kind of an attempt at keeping track of things. But yeah, a little more direction I think would have been a good idea. Let's
not
see.
not necessarily a con for me, but
Mhm.
whenever you paused the game in this, it told you a couple statistics. I won't spoil all of those here for you, but it kept track basically of I think three numbers as you're
Hmm.
playing the game. And the one I finally figured out how to do pretty early on, and that was a fun part of little distraction of the game, which is I'll just spoil that. That was like
Sure.
you can paper and play basketball across the room, which, I would be like crumpling up paper and shooting baskets while somebody's like, my husband's bleeding on the floor. And I'd be like, swish across the room.
We should point out there's also sound effects you can play during calls or
Yeah,
during
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So you could in that situation you could also hit like the laughter button or something if you really wanted to be a jerk about it.
The hidden things in this game I did terrible at. Like that's just a self-play spoiler. I don't know where I was supposed to look for those at, but I did terrible. Oh my gosh. I don't know how'd you do with
Same.
those.
Are you talking about like the records
Yeah,
or
yeah.
I found a few, but I by no means all of them.
Oh wow.
Like I was opening like drawers as I came to
Yeah.
them just to see if there was anything in them. And no, I really don't know if unless I was supposed to like go in the women's room and there's like maybe one tucked behind the toilet or something, really out of the way. I don't know.
I think I only found the one necessary for like plot advancement. I don't even know if I found any
Hmm.
past that, but like I looked everywhere and I was like, I don't know where else these are at. And
Uh,
I didn't look those up afterwards. I don't know where they are. So
yeah, I found I don't remember the name of the one I found that was not plot specific, but it was like Savage Tiger or something like that, Slash in the
ooh,
Night or whatever. But but
make
yeah,
fun of
there
that.
was like 3 or 4 empty slots in the record bin by the time I finished the game. It's like, oh damn. So if you like collecting things and you really like scouring your environment for stuff, that's also certainly a draw for this because there is hidden material to find.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right with the like once you understand that you have to like go someplace, find some material that you're going to use to help solve a puzzle, you do start to become like a collector. And there'd be times where I'd like have something in my left hand the entire time and I was like, this has got to be useful. So I'd just keep carrying it around forever. And then finally I was like, throw this on the ground. I don't know what this is even for, if it's even for anything.
Oh God, by the end, my version of the recording studio had like random bits of paper like on every horizontal surface, just like cluttered up the entire thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, just in case I need
Trash
it again.
everywhere.
Yeah. But
That's fun.
yeah. Let's see. Were there any? I know we talked a bit about like the voice acting and stuff. But were there any characters that really grated on you? Like ones that it's like, oh God, I have to save this person. Like, were there any performances
Hmm.
that really didn't hit it for you?
I can't think of anybody that stood out as being terrible. I think the one that annoyed me the most, at least top of my head, was the lady who calls because she's with the guy who's bleeding out, and you
Hmm.
have to end up calling her like 3 times. I think eventually
I
she was a little like, all right, lady, come on.
I didn't mind her as much. To me, the one that bothered me, and it was more like just the script they gave her. The one who calls up and she can't or won't even tell you like what her address is, so you can try to save her. It's just like,
Mm,
where are you, lady? She's just like, oh no, it's just and she hangs up, and you have to try and extrapolate through the most convoluted method
yeah,
imaginable to try and figure out where she is and how to get her help. But
that's good.
I mean, I have to give him credit for at least trying to do something weird and abstract with that.
Yeah, it's just again like trying to find more puzzles, I think, and different styles of puzzles and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you have a problem with tonally in the game, like I mentioned earlier, where they'd have somebody just be killed and the Forrest main character was so serious about it, but then he'd come back with like, haha, pun intro to the radio. Or like someone died and he's like, oh my God, that's terrible. We just lost that person. Welcome back to, and you're like, mm. Or
I mean,
did it
yeah.
just seem too tongue in cheek? It didn't matter to you.
Um, there were a couple of times because I didn't save everybody. There were certainly times where that felt a bit jarring. There were other times like where someone was calling up, they're like, who is this? This is I called 911. Who are you? What are you doing? And he would just immediately launch into his radio delivery like it was a reflex. This
Yeah,
is Forrest Nash. Just kind of like it was just ingrained in him. I liked that, but yeah, I do agree. Like after a death, it did seem like it might weigh on you as the player, but it didn't weigh on him as a character as much as it felt like it should.
that's a good way to summarize that, I think, right there.
Yeah. Though to be fair, they would have had to record so many extra like takes of things,
Yeah,
in different tones to try and accommodate everything that would have been a lot of work.
that's true. And the 22 characters who can live or die definitely can change the ending, but I don't know that it ultimately changes the plot that much. I don't know if that's too
Yeah.
spoilery or not. Like, there's a reason the people are being targeted. Let's just put that out there. But,
Mhm.
if caller number 3 dies in your playthrough, I don't know that it really matters. So I guess maybe Forrest Nash is just like, well, whatever.
But yeah, you're right. At the end, and again, without spoiling what that ending is, there are several points during that final sequence where it's like, oh well, if I'd saved them, then maybe we could have figured out what they had to say about this, and it's like that I kind of liked, but throughout,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
a good
think
point.
yeah, but otherwise, yeah, I do think the meat of the story it plays out pretty much the same until that ending point, regardless of who lives and who dies.
Well, do you have much more? I'm kind of wondering if we should actually do the rating mid episode and then go into spoiler
Yeah,
territory here.
let's do that because that
Want to mix
way,
it
I
up?
mean, yeah, we can let people know what we think, and then if they're interested and they don't want things spoiled, then they can stop at that point and then play it and then come back. But if otherwise they're just kind of curious about the spoilery stuff, they can just keep on trucking.
There you
Um,
go.
so yeah, why don't you go first as the co-host
Okay.
here?
Yeah, so I guess I will start with just I don't know if you had this queued up or not, but reviews for this game seem to be a little mixed all over the place. There's a lot of them that are in the 7 to 9 range, which is awesome. Online, different things, Metacritic and some other websites I was on out there. You'll find some as low as 5 out of 10 as well, so those should also be mentioned. But for me, and being spoiler free with this, I really enjoyed just like, again, that the whole concept of how you create the terror in your mind. You create the situation off screen that you're not going to see. It's like, good analogy, when I went to go see Clue yesterday at the Performing Arts Center, there would be a couple scenes where the lights went out and you'd hear noises and like, it's happening, but you're probably visualizing a much darker version than what's actually happening, when the lights are off. So it's your mind, they always say, is like the greatest thing you can conjure in terms of scares, right? So
Mhm.
I really liked that. I really thought it was an original idea to be in a convoluted but somewhat logical way, the 911 operator for the town suddenly. Like, that was a really fun thing to throw on someone on their normal daily profession and be like, I have to do what now? You're like, well, you're the last line between these people, live or die. So there's that. I did enjoy, as I mentioned, that it was a relatively shortish game. I thought it was a nice little itch to scratch as you're playing through this. And without going into too many details, I did like that your world got at least slightly bigger as you kept playing the
Mhm.
game. You weren't just stuck in front of the one turntable the whole time. Love the branching storylines as far as the characters that lived and died, as far as potential endings in this. That might be enough to get me to go back and replay this one sometime. Yes, I guess I have some criticisms, which probably are mostly in the spoiler territory, so I can't necessarily touch on all of those at the moment. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to give you two numbers here, Justin. I'm gonna give an 8
Sure.
out of 10 for the game, but I am gonna dock it in, I guess that's pun intended, for playing on the Switch in dock mode. I'm gonna take it
Uh,
down to a 7 out of 10 just from the way I played it. If I had played it handheld, probably would have been 8 out of 10, I'm guessing.
okay. Um, I honestly would say, aside from a few of the puzzles, like having elements that weren't clear initially because I just didn't look in the right spot or whatever, like with the post-it notes. My main criticism about the game is we mentioned it's about a 5 hour experience, and its normal price is about $25. So depending on your cost per hour ratio,
That's a good point.
that is something to consider. Yes, there is replay value, but if this is just something you're gonna play, over a long weekend or with some friends once and then never touch it again, bear that in mind. You might want to wait for a sale. That said, though, it's such a different concept with a really strong, unique voice, and good soundtrack, good voice acting, and it's just fun. I really enjoyed 90% of my time with this game, and there it did have some rough edges. It did have some parts where I felt like it dropped the ball maybe a little, but overall I really enjoyed it. I probably will go back and play it again. I might even like have some friends play through to see how their playthrough is different than mine, like who they save, who they lost. And it's short enough that I could have people over for just like a day and see how it shakes out. So yeah, it is a game that I really did enjoy, and it has a lot to offer for even though it has a slightly higher price tag. I got to go 8 out of 10 as well. Not perfect, but really distinctive for what it is. So. And with that, I think we're entering spoiler territory. So if anything we've said up till this point sounds fun, interesting, intriguing, go check it out. Or if you don't want to spend $25, watch a playthrough on YouTube or something. But spoilers from this point onward. So you've been warned. Okay.
I was just gonna say too, this game also seemed to be, I imagine it wasn't, but it was tailor made for streamers, because I know like I watched to see like a couple of the other things I missed afterwards. I was watching another guy play and he just had like a million comments, zooming through on the left of like, pick this choice, and like they were arguing in the comments about what to do. So this is like the perfect game if you're a streamer out there who's trying to get your audience interaction up. That'd be really fun. I mean, hell, it would be a little boring, but you could theoretically have a playthrough of this like at a Halloween party or a scary movie night, or like just add it to, it'd be a little downtime here and there, but anyway. Mm-hmm. Spoilers.
Okay, you seemed like you had a few like
game
right
sucked. I was just kidding. No, I'm joking.
You seemed like you had a few right at the forefront of your mind. Did you want to start us off?
Yeah, I had a couple things in here. Number one, with the interface at the actual studio, I was semi frustrated. You mentioned like the really cool sound effect buttons and like all the records you could pick. None of that mattered though. Like that's the part that bothered to me a lot in this. Like I never played a sound effect other than once to see what they did. I never pressed the buttons again.
I did it once when the like frat boys called up and they were like, "Oh man, I'm the killer. You got to send us booze, or I'm gonna murder half the town," that kind of thing. So I kept on like hitting like boo sound effects and stuff over him just to drown him out. But
maybe I should have had more fun with that, boy.
And at least I know the Switch doesn't really have achievements, but the first time I did that, a little thing popped up in the corner. It was like, you've earned this achievement for playing a sound effect during the film.
That's fun. I don't know why the Switch doesn't have achievement. That's so weird.
It is, yeah.
Xbox and PlayStation both have them, right?
Yes, yeah, and Steam does too for a lot of games.
Yeah, anyway. I have no idea why Switch doesn't have it. It's weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Unless they didn't do it because they thought everybody else did do it. I don't really know. But
it's Nintendo. They make odd decisions sometimes.
So yeah, so this was like my question, which is like, it would have changed the game, but would I have liked the game more if it was like you need to play this record at this time, or even this commercial? Because the commercials didn't seem to matter the order you played them in either, as far as I could tell. Like I think I finished with like one left and I played it at the end to be like, what the hell is this thing? I don't
know. I did try to match up the records with what with the content of the call, at least based on like the titles of the songs and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like after you mentioned the guy who got stabbed, I flipped through the records and there was one called like A Stab in the Dark. And like, yeah, sure. Just threw that one on there. But yeah, it didn't impact anything other than just kind of meta narrative comedic value.
Yeah, I did enjoy that you didn't have to take the records off the turnstile, just put them on. I was like, thank God whoever thought that through. That's brilliant.
I tried taking it off and putting it back in the sleeve, and it's just, oh my God, just like dropped the record on top of the stack. And I'm like, oh no, what do I, so I picked it back up and yeah. So, but eventually I was like, oh, okay, you just take a new one and the other one disappears. So,
all right. Other things I had here. Let's go to this one first. Did it bother you, or did I mess this up, that there were like areas of the studio you couldn't get into? Like it seemed like there were like 3 or 4 doors that never opened, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I kept thinking, okay, this game's going to just keep expanding and expanding, and it did. But yeah, those doors never opened either. And I know they weren't supposed to because, again, achievements kind of spoiled that for me.
Okay.
Once I got the last key that was necessary, a little thing popped up as like, find all the keys in the station or unlock all the doors in the station. Okay. It's just like, oh, well, I know I'm done there. On a related note, I probably added like a good 10-15 minutes to my playtime after, okay, when you find the secret room. We're in spoiler territory, so screw it. The secret room in the janitor's closet.
Yeah.
You go down there the first time and you dig through things, and you go back up to your station, and then you have to go back there again. And like as soon as you walk into the room, your character says, "Was that key always there? Maybe I missed it the first time." I had no idea where that was. I
Oh,
mean, it's like this hole in the wall, that's covered in like newspaper clippings and stuff. But I was looking like on the desk because I had found another key on the desk. I'm like, did I sequence break this? Did I take that key before I was supposed to? So I'm
interesting.
wondering, yeah. So I went back up to the studio, and Pecky was like, no, you should go check it out more. And I'm like, all right, fine. And I eventually had to look it up online. Like, is there another key in this room? And they're like, oh yeah, it's in the wall. And I look, and it's like, son of a bitch, it's
Right
right
there.
there. But I wasn't looking inside the wall because I didn't think there'd be anything there.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yeah.
So I know one thing I only after the game was over did I put down as a con is I just wish there had been actually more scares in the game.
Hmm.
The tension was there. I kept
Yeah.
thinking there was going to be more scares. I was terrified to walk around that record studio for like the first two
Oh,
thirds of the game. And
yes.
then at some point, I was just like, nothing's happening here. So then I just started like running all over and like, nothing did happen. So I was like, okay, I'll just run around then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there in one aspect that could be considered a plus because it's not too scary. There's very few jump scares or things that are actually going to make you really really on edge. So your tolerance for that sort of thing is a bit lower, this is still a good Halloweeny kind of experience.
Yeah.
But I did think that there going to have to be sections where I'd have to hide from the killer, or like uh, um, after you do have to go outside and you head back in, that the way you get back in doesn't ever close behind you. So I'm like, oh shit, they're okay. At some point, he's going to be stalking me through the studio. I'm going to have to use all the tricks and tips that I've told the callers to also get myself out of this. And I was waiting for that to happen, waiting for that to
Yeah.
happen. Never happened. So I was a little disappointed in that too.
Even like,
Um,
I just wish they had even, if they weren't going to have somebody physically be in the space, then even like add a few times where he like sees the killer through the window or
mm,
like on the building next
yeah,
door through the window or something.
a little bit. Well, like when you go outside and you have to try to find that record that got tossed out into the street, you can see the whistling man as he goes around the corner, like beyond one of the fences.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's like the only time aside from the very end, and yeah,
Okay.
that's not quite
I
the
don't even know
same.
if I saw that. It's possible I didn't even see that. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, I went around the corner and I saw him just like walking across the other end of the alleyway. I'm like, oh shit! And I backed up and waited for him to pass because I figured if he saw me, he would chase me or he'd like climb the fence and I'd have to try and like hide or something. But never happened. So I will also say, and since we're in spoilers, I don't mind at the end when the killer is in the studio, and for me at least, he was given instructions to kill me. So he goes around, it opens the door. I'm like panicking, and I go back
yeah.
behind the area, and I see there's like a coffee pot. And I grab that, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna maybe it's full of hot water. I'm gonna throw it at him. I'm gonna whip it at him. I'm at least gonna go out fighting. He opens the door, and I hit the throw button. And he lobs it like 2 feet. It's like the most limp-wristed, weak, polio-ridden throw. It's just like, and it just clatters to the ground. And it was one of the most unintentionally hilarious moments of that game because the killer doesn't even react. He just kind of like looks at me and it starts advancing forward. I'm like, well, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, yes. Good. I got three more points here in just all they're all tied together. So I'm just curious what you thought of this one thing, which is how did you enjoy the plot overall of the
um,
game?
I I liked how it did touch on the town's past. It kind of Stephen King-ish in a way there, where uh, people had to atone for things that they had done, when they were kids, or
Yeah.
or what their parents had done, or whatever. Um, and I think it worked. It wasn't anything groundbreaking or special, but I thought it was perfectly fitting for what the game was trying to be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I had it as both a pro and a con.
Okay.
With for the pros, I said the plot was almost believable. Um, And if you're thinking of like this is an homage to the 80s slasher flicks, then this is not too far off that. Like, who's the killer? What's their motivation? Who are they going to kill
Yeah,
next? That's the whole story.
yeah.
And then for con, I put plot was necessarily convoluted. And I was like, well, that's, but anyway, did
Well,
you feel, well, go
go
ahead.
on. Oh,
Well,
I liked that they didn't take it into a supernatural element because
yeah.
for a lot of it, it's like, how is the killer getting across town, so fast? He was just over here, and now he's like, over killing someone on
Mm,
the east side. And I like how there was a rational explanation for that.
yes.
They didn't go like later Friday the 13th movies where he's unkillable and just keeps popping back up, and regardless of what you do, it was all at least kind of grounded in reality. And I liked that they kept it kind of explicable.
Yeah, so the third point I had on that same idea I had done on the cons for me, which was I just didn't really feel like there was enough um to get me to buy into what the actual plot was that was happening. Is then I didn't necessarily know the characters well enough to like
Mm-hmm.
understand their story and or care about them in the way they seemingly wanted me to do on the air. I don't really.
That's fair, but I mean, if you take it as we're seeing this all from Forrest's perspective, it kind of fits because
Yeah, that's true.
he was a former like big shot. He's found himself in this little town that he doesn't like. He's not invested in it. He doesn't really necessarily like any of the people. I mean, maybe a little bit as the story goes on, and he finds his place in it by helping them survive. But it kind of fits him, like where he wouldn't be as invested in,
Yeah, that's true.
a prank that went wrong 30 years ago, and
He's the outsider, right?
right. So it kind of fits in a
Yeah, I
meta
guess I
narrative
could
kind
see
of way.
that. I
Yeah.
guess I could see that. I definitely thought they did a good job with the glass between you and
Hmm.
Peggy
Yeah.
because I figured at some point something was going to have to happen with that glass. Somebody was going to come through it, or I was going to
Mm.
witness her get killed, or something. And how they
Yeah.
actually finally used it was not really how I anticipated they would. So,
But it was effective, I think.
yes.
Mhm.
Well, to start with, and then that phone
Yeah.
call goes on for about 5 minutes. And eventually the killer is literally like just leaning against the glass, like tapping on it. And you're like, you're bored too. See, get to the point. Let's do this.
I did like his mask though. I mean, I do have to say I
Yeah, it
liked
was a
the
cool
design of
mask.
the whistling gun mask. Yeah.
It was a cool
So
mask.
yeah. Um, I mean, is this guy, this person, iconic enough to, uh, be a recurring face in horror? I don't think so, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, they did a lot with a fairly straightforward premise, I think. Especially with the true nature of who the killer is, and I was like, okay, that's a little different. A little bit of a callback to some slasher flicks, but with its own twist on it. So I don't want to spoil that necessarily, but I think
Yeah.
it was neat. Um,
Um, the
but
room
yeah,
you referenced earlier that was like the maze room, let's just call it. Like I was convinced for sure more was going to happen in that room.
yeah, yeah. Like I was like, okay, I can to get past this intersection, I could go this way, or there's this other like sort of path off to the corner that you can kind of squeeze through. I was I was dead certain I was going to have to work my way around the killer as he was searching for me or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, disappointed that that didn't happen. Because it's like it was all this build up, all this tension. I'm like, oh crap, when is he gonna storm into the room? When is he gonna start like knocking stuff over? And it's just yeah, just nothing. Even when
Yeah.
you had to go when the power goes out and you have to venture back down there to reactivate it, I was like, oh crap, oh this is where it's really gonna everything's gonna kick off.
Yeah.
And yes, at the end of that, something happens, but I was expecting more during that sequence.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
yeah.
Um, a couple other tiny things I have here before the big question, which is I didn't even notice this while I was playing it. Again, just didn't pay attention to it, I guess. But a couple of people I saw on websites pointed out that like two of the characters call the station from like a place they can't have a phone, like
I
the
was
guy
gonna
in the
bring
middle
that.
of the corn maze.
Yeah. This is in the 80s. People didn't have cell phones.
Yeah, which
So, which to the point where I kind of forgot it was supposed to take place during the 80s during those sections because I was like, oh,
yeah,
it's contemporary, and then wait, no, Or like,
I
you know,
was
when they're the sorority, not the sorority people, but the ones who are visiting the old murder house, and they, you know, they have reception out there, and they're talking to you as they're like running to the car. It's like, wait, what?
yeah.
So,
He just did this. We're running to the car.
mhm.
No.
Yeah. So a few idiosyncrasies like that, which, yeah, you're right. That probably should lower my score a little bit if I'm being fair. So maybe 7.5 instead of an 8. But I mean, still a very enjoyable game despite
Yeah,
the hiccups.
it wasn't enough to
Yeah.
lower it. I just kind of like you said, I just kind of forgot at those moments that it was
Right. Because you're flipping through
supposed to
someone's
take
list of
place
like,
then. Yeah.
yeah, who's good at what and like who would be the best to, you know, climb up a building. It's like, wait, what? Sure, this person, why not? You know.
Yeah.
um,
Let me see. What else do I have on my end here? Oh, I gotta share this part with you. Oh, well, let's talk. This kind of goes hand in hand with what happened at the end of our game. So, do you want to get into the endings, and
sure.
then also who lived and
I
who died for us?
sure. I'm still mad that I ended up killing Roller Ricky.
You killed Roller Ricky,
Not by design, but I knew I shouldn't have given it should
dude.
given yeah, I made a poor choice there.
It's Roller
And
Ricky.
he was just such a chill guy.
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
yeah, and oh, so yeah. I'd say I probably saved about 60%, maybe two-thirds of the people. I started out strong. Like the first two, I got through no problem. I'm like, yeah, I got this. And
Yeah,
then it really started to go back and forth from that point onwards.
interesting. Oh man,
Yeah.
I so I lost a total of five of the
Okay.
22. But
Okay.
I will say a lot of those happened at the end of the game. So
Yeah.
there's that.
I'm not sure really how you can save at least one of the people at the end because it seems like their fate is decided outside of your control. Like I don't think there's even like a dialogue choice you can shout out once they enter the picture, as it were.
Hmm.
So unless it was dependent on something I didn't do earlier, I don't know. We're talking about Peggy, right?
So Piggy died
Yep.
the first time I played through, and this is where I was angry
Mhm.
because um you had to find the thing on the desk
Uh-huh.
to save her. You had to pick it up during the part that's the part, right?
Yeah.
And I clicked on that thing about 500 times and it never picked it up.
Really?
And I was so irate afterwards because she died. And then that was like
Mhm.
basically the end of the game. And then I was like, what the hell? How was I supposed to save her? Like that had to be the thing you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up online and they were like, yep, that's what you got to find. And I was like, well, what the?
Huh.
So interestingly, I watched a guy playing this and he like basically was going back and he had to reload his game and he went back and he tried to redo the last part. And this was one of the guys with all the streamers I was talking about.
Mhm.
And I think the game glitched because
Oh.
near as I can tell, I pressed continue maybe
Uh-huh.
instead of load and it took me right back to that moment.
Oh.
And from what I can gather online, that's not how the game is designed to be. Like you're supposed to go back to the previous load or
Mhm.
way back earlier or whatever. But I happened to go back to that exact same moment and like
Huh.
it was like basically like almost that cue to like figure out what to do on the phone again.
Mhm.
So I have to out myself here because I'm a moron. So I
Okay.
tried to pick up the card the second time
Mhm.
and still couldn't pick the damn thing up. And I was like, this game is broken. Like, you can't
Oh
save this
no.
person.
Mhm.
It was only then that I realized apparently I had been holding a mop handle in my hand the entire time that I was in the studio room and therefore could not pick it up. So then I shifted the hands and I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. And then
Oh.
so the second time I played that little smidge at the end, Peggy was saved, but she died the first
Okay.
time I played through the official playthrough.
Yeah, it's weird because I picked that up and I read off what I thought was the right prompt from that, and the killer still killed her. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know what I did wrong. So I maybe I mean, because I read off what I think had to be the right prompt, and maybe there was one choice after that, but I don't remember. But yeah, so
Okay.
Debbie still ended up dead for some reason.
Um, so did you survive in yours?
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
did too. But you know who did not? Teddy Gallows Jr.
Oh, fuck that guy.
Boy, did he die hard and fast in my game. Holy cow.
To my credit, I never told the killer to hit him again because those were options. Like when he started getting kind of snippy, you could just say, so and so, hit him again.
Yeah.
I never did that, but he still ended up getting knifed a lot. So, and I did not
Uh,
regret that. I mean, he was one of the few people who was like, this guy, the world can keep on going without him.
he was quite scummy, I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy the I'm just trying to look. Oh, this is I lost Murphy. Oh, this
Oh,
is the
the
guy who
newspaper
went
guy.
for the one-on-one dude.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I think I lost Murphy too. I tried, but yeah, I lost the newspaper guy because I got jumpy. I got to the point where he's like carrying the radio from point A to point B, and he's like, you got to be quiet till I get there. But then you hear footsteps like following him, and it's just, there's this little timer that's ticking down, ticking down. And I'm like, the footsteps just keeping getting closer. So I,
Yeah.
so I, I, I caved, and I was like, you got to find somewhere to hide. And he's like,
Yep.
Forrest Nash, you son of a bitch, and then he just gets stabbed to death.
Yeah, I'm just sticking through a walkthrough for the people here. So that's Maurice. I lost him also I think on the last part.
Mm.
Same thing though. I think now that you mentioned the timing thing, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I was like, oh crap, I sent him to the wrong room, and maybe if I give him a warning before the killer sees him, and then nope, didn't work.
Oh, what? I was says I lost Martinez too. Can you lose her at the end?
Maybe
I don't
I
think
didn't think so.
I didn't lose her in the beginning because isn't she the one that drives to the next town
Yeah, yeah,
and like radios the whole game? So I
yeah.
didn't lose her
Huh.
at the beginning of the game. Let's see.
Hmm.
Um,
Let's see. Roller Ricky, I mentioned. Um, I lost the lady who wouldn't tell me where she was because I didn't notice the post-it notes saying where other people lived. So the person I tried to send for help didn't get there in time. Um,
hmm.
I lost the guy who was hiding in the building that got set on fire um, because I gave him the wrong instructions or something, or I tried to. I don't remember exactly how that one went, but he died.
You were like, "This is Forrest Nash. Dose yourself in gasoline."
Do it for the viewers. No, or listeners, I guess. Um,
We can't see you. Oh, this was a terrible mistake.
let's see. There was the one with the you had to figure out who they ordered food from, where I looked at the newspaper, I didn't look at the date on the newspaper, and that screwed me over. So I lost that person. Um, trying to think of like who else. Uh, I lost like I said, a little less than half of them, I think. So it feels terrible to say, like it just in a general sense, but they do kind of blend together after a while. I'm a terrible person, but
Oh, I did lose Martinez like at the beginning of the game.
then who rallied the cops?
I'm trying because I remember this choice now. This was you had to pick either the taser or the
Yeah,
metal baton
baton.
or the spray, and I picked the spray for reasons I don't.
The killer's wearing a mask.
I don't want to get into it, Justin. Okay. I thought it would still blind the person through the thing, but anyway. But yeah,
Uh,
I don't understand
uh,
exactly what happened here.
that's weird.
Leslie, wait, who's Leslie?
Uh, who was Leslie?
Leslie will take the weapon suggested by Forrest. Martinez comes back to her senses enough to lean up on Leslie as they walk over to the garage.
Oh, so I
I
guess in
don't
your
know.
play, huh? I guess in your playthrough there were two cops that were still alive. Interesting.
I'm not sure. I don't see a Leslie on this screen with all the people either, so I'm not sure what happened there. But anyway,
Huh.
I did lose that person. I remember now. But
Huh.
I don't know. I thought they were there the whole time. But
I did save the guy in the corner, or excuse me, the amazing maze.
right, that was a fun
Yeah,
one.
that was. And sometimes even when you screw up, you can get amusing, amusing results. because I think that guy he ended up playing a part in one of my other screw ups. Uh, because it was one where you had to like back to the food one. You don't know where the caller actually is, so you have to try and you figure out like where they play. But they mentioned there was like a loud frat house next to them where they had placed an order for food, and you have to try and figure out like what place they ordered from and which frat house it is and like which street they're on. And
Yeah.
I ended up calling the wrong fast food place and getting in touch with like the fraternal brotherhood of like electrical engineers or something.
Oh
And
wow.
this like I think it was Egbert or the guy who was in the corn maze. I think it was the same guy,
Okay.
Eugene, and he just is this very high nasally kind of voice, like, "Oh, I hope we didn't keep our neighbors awake. We didn't have loud music going that I know of, that kind of thing."
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, he kind of showed up more than once in my playthrough, and it was like, "Oh no, I got to save him since I screwed up with the other lady with him the first time."
That's fun. Try to see if I have anything else in here. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I
I
know I
think we
lost
got the
others, but
ending and we got who survived the end of it all. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was maybe expecting that there would be some kind of hand-to-hand reaction moment in the fight at the end, but that was not really the case either.
yeah, and at least you didn't embarrass yourself with the coffee pot like I did.
I'll tell you, I hit in the exact same spot you did.
Yeah, I was like, well, I didn't
You
bother hiding because I was like, okay, this place isn't that big. He can see me through the window. He's gonna find me, so I got to defend myself. So I waited until he slammed open the door, and it just like, like I'm part of the fraternal brotherhood of engineers. But yeah, that was I was expecting more out of that too.
But yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that's it. Yeah, I have no idea where the records were. Seriously, I
The one I found was in a drawer at the end of the maze section, like the
okay.
with all the filing cabinets and stuff. But that's the only one I found other than the plot crucial one.
I feel like I opened everything I found, but I will admit, like after again a certain amount of time, I was like, well, none of this is finding me anything. So
Yeah,
looking hard is not gonna.
yeah,
But
and it was to the point where I was like closing doors carefully behind me because I was sure that I wasn't alone in the station.
hmm,
But just from paranoia and was like, okay, maybe if the killer doesn't notice a door ajar, maybe I'll be okay. And then there's nothing to worry about in the end. So yeah, it was the Silent Hill Shattered Memories kind of problem where
yeah,
good narrative, good story, but once you realize you're not in danger, it takes a lot of the tension out of it. So
hmm.
yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have. No. I will try to remember to link the theme song
Oh heck yeah.
after we do the post because it is. I'm not kidding you out there. It's fantastic. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
it is fantastic.
But yeah,
Anything else you got, Justin?
no, I think we covered most of the bases. It's a flawed gem, but it's still one that's worth seeking out, I think. Again, you might want to wait for a sale, just because it is a little
Yeah.
pricey for 5 hours of entertainment. But you figure if you're getting a group of friends together to play through this and have some laughs, it's cheaper than going to the movies. Um, when you factor in like the cost of movie tickets, what, $12 these days at least. So
Yeah.
it's two people going to see a movie versus a group of people coming to sit down and essentially play through a 5 hour long horror movie. That this is a better option, I think. And I honestly think this is more entertaining to play as a group than some of like those games like The Devil Inside or The Quarry, or I haven't played The Quarry, but the ones from that studio. Some
Mhm.
of those are really good to play in a group. Others is just kind of like, especially the House of Ashes, I think was the one that was the worst of theirs, and
I
a similar price.
don't think I played
Yeah,
that
that
one.
was okay. But yeah, in terms of like uh, games you can play as a group to make decisions and get input from the people sitting around you, you could certainly do worse than Killer Frequency. It would be a great sort of party game if you have like a long day to spend with some friends, or even just on your own to experience a fun bit of cheesy B movie slasher horror. So yeah, I despite its occasional shortcomings, I would still easily recommend this one.
Yeah, I echo to here. And even if you have stuck with us this long, we still have not divulged exactly what the ending is,
Mhm.
or who the killer is, or some other twists and turns. Because there are some fake outs along the way too. I felt like,
Oh yes.
you find some things and you're like, oh, 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 maybe,
Hmm.
maybe not. So
Yeah.
it's a fun one for sure.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I think we kind of covered everything we can cover on this one. Go give it a shot if you're interested. Until then, do either of us even have anything we want to rant about for 20 seconds? Or
I don't know.
uh all right,
You're the host. I regret
sure.
making you a host.
It's oh geez, well thanks. Fine. Okay, go ahead. Rant about me being a host if you want to for 20 seconds.
This is Mr. Fleming, and I'm here on 169.69, The Scissor. And here with Justin tonight, and he's looking pretty good right now. You can't see him, of course, but I can, and I can tell you the way the light is glistening off the forehead right now is just amazing. When he tilts his head back when he laughs, well, you could just about imagine other things that could fit that same possible posture, such as breaking
Uh
the cell phone neck that many people in America have. That's right. Take care of your necks first. Make sure you do anti stretches to go against the downward tending looking that America does all the time in this digital age that we have. There it is. Now he's demonstrating us very good, almost as if he's acting as though he's underneath an elephant. And my 20 seconds is up.
well, that's great and all, but what if I leave it out in the rain?
That's the best part. Justin knows how to swim, so he won't drown at all. He will actually still be good, and you can lay him out in the sun afterwards, and he'll dry out in only 3 to 5 days.
uh well, I
Drinks
think that
drinks with small umbrellas are encouraged.
small umbrellas won't
Just
keep the
bring
rain
this
off.
boy a rag soaked in malort and place it gently over his nose and mouth. He'll revive consciousness in no time.
Malort,
That theory
the
to be
antidote to
tested.
ether.
The anti ether.
All right. I think that about wraps it up.
Oh
Have a good
my.
night, everyone.
Bye everybody. Happy Spooktober.